Welcome back to the Dark Elves Abridged, where last time we used some hacks to recover from a bunch of crashes and put ourselves into a war with the lizardmen. I spent a while trying to maneuver for decent battles. Eventually we took a bit of territory from them and took down one of their armies in a decisive engagement. Lockyer also stole some territory up north, but down south the territory we took was taken back when more lizards showed up, so we're not out of this one yet. To start off this part, we're going to look at the new bonus objectives, because as it happened I completed the last chapter by taking Temple of Kara in the previous part, and we did all of the bonus objectives, so I get a bunch of money and my random objective for this campaign has been completed. So let's see what we have. They're actually mostly things we're probably going to do anyway. First is just to level up Lockyer, which we've done. Then it says win 20 battles, well we're going to want to do that anyway. This is the one that might require some actual effort. We need to make 5,000 a turn, and that's not including raiding income. We can easily get 5,000 if we raid a lot. But we need to actually build up the economy and stop hiring so many troops to get that happening, which may or may not happen. The fourth objective was to get a load of captives, which we'll do while winning those 20 battles, most likely. And the final objective was to confederate someone. Our main option will be these guys right here, the Cult of Pleasure. The problem we're going to have is that we can't confederate them because they're stronger than us. I think what's happened is Marathi's faction has confederated with the main Dark Elf guy, whose name I forget, the guy at the very top of the map. So basically the Cult of Pleasure has absolutely loads of territory up here, meaning we have to be even stronger than that to make them kind of vassalize themselves into us. Therefore, I don't know how possible that objective's going to be, but we'll give it a look. As for our current war situation, we've got this siege going on the last Cult of Sotek territory, but I'm worried that an Itza army is hanging around to the south, so there could be some disruption there. I'm bringing down this trash stack of reinforcements to try and overpower the garrison, because I haven't done the siege attack due to the strength of Sotek's garrison in that area. We've also got Lockyer up north, and we're going to go for the Itzan territories around here rather than helping out with the southern campaign, because they're probably undefended, and at the very least we can get some good raiding going and just be really annoying by taking these territories. In particular, Floating Pyramid right there is very lightly defended, so we can certainly just storm in and auto-resolve that place to death. Moving on, the Gorok army from Itza does come up and interrupt my siege here. We could try and fight everything and use this as a siege draw out, but I don't really want to do that because it seems pretty likely we can fight just one or the other one at a time in some way, so we dodge that, and Gorok doesn't follow up with anything else. In the next turn I spotted this curiosity. There was a Bretonnian army up at the Galleon's graveyard. I say army, it's actually just one guy upon further inspection. It's their faction leader, or Bordelot's faction leader actually, just chilling out there, gradually dying of attrition. Not sure what the plan is, or whether he plans to go attack the graveyard on his own, but hopefully no shenanigans are coming of that. Now back to the Gorok thing. He's standing right there next to the town, so not ideal, but it does mean I can block the town with one army and then attack Gorok with everything to get an advantage against just him. This trash tank would have been perfect for that, but annoyingly she ran out of movement points right in front of the settlement, so we couldn't do it. But I could just do a siege with one of the other two armies, get the other one to then attack Gorok. He runs away, unfortunately. I thought we might be able to bring him down there. At least now we have even more stuff set up around the siege. I had hoped that with this 2 3/4 stack setup, we could just auto-resolve the garrison and be done with this. But no, they've still got that big balance bar advantage, so I'm too scared to actually do it. And I'm also too lazy to do the manual assault, which I'm almost certain would be fine in this scenario, but it would also take a lot of time and effort. So instead, we're going to come back to that situation. For now, up north, Lockyer goes and attacks that Floating Pyramid place, and we can just easily storm in and grab the auto-resolve here. I actually don't loot the place, not only because it's not worth that much, but because I want to actually hold on to it for a bit of time. We're doing that as a public order decision, because both this place and the Temple of Kara recently taken are going to be difficult to hold public order wise, as is some of the other stuff further east. Now then, I came to the diplomacy table to see if Itza wanted peace, and they did. So I actually took a peace treaty with them right now, even though I'm in a position to go on, especially with Lockyer, and take more territory from them. I specifically wanted Gorok to not attack me, so that's really what that peace treaty is about. Now Gorok will walk away and leave me free to focus down the cult of Sotek. But we're not really going to actually pretend to be at peace with them. We're going to start moving as if we're going to attack them again, because realistically we are. They are going to be our number one target after Sotek, so Lockyer there goes into their territory and starts raiding, ready for that. Meanwhile, back over here, we do the focusing down. I've now, a couple of turns later, grabbed a siege tower, so we have some more presence on the balance bar. And with this I thought, okay, I'm willing to auto-resolve that, and we do get what I wanted really, basically a victory with minimal losses. We only lost one unit, all of the actual casualties will just be reversed in a second, so they don't matter. That's what we need. So we've done the Cult of Sotek now, they are dead, and we're ready to just flow all of these troops right over to the west and attack Itza. We're still in a 10-turn peace treaty, but we are, as I said, just going to ignore that. So here I am in the next turn, going right over the border and getting the raiding going. As I move forward, I spot that Gorok is actually sitting just there. His army's not at full strength right now. It's because this Chupo place was a ruin a second ago, so he's just colonized it and lost a bunch of troops. Unfortunately, we're not quite here in time to capitalize on that, but it does mean it's an easy place for us to take because it's going to be barely built up with no garrison and stuff. As for Lockyer, I decided to go after this rebellion over here at Temple of Kara. It's actually the humans rebelling, funnily enough. I think this is the little expedition faction that was here before. They're trying to come back, so we need to put them down. Kind of a waste of Lockyer's army because it's just going to be really easy, but we're going to do that anyway. Slightly respecting the peace treaty to some extent up there, but that doesn't say the same for these guys down south. I spotted that Gorok has moved away from that settlement, and I instantly slam myself into the diplomacy menu to find a way to betray these guys. I do it through the abominations to get some money and alliance with them. I thought that might not cause my reliability to drop. That works in earlier games, but in this one apparently that is not the case. So now everyone hates us again, but that was realistically always the situation. Not sure that makes any real difference to our diplomacy. And we storm forwards and grab this little place. Obviously it's not going to be worth anything because it's only just been built, there's nothing here. But it's nice, we have the territory, we can replenish in it at least, and Itza will feel like they've lost something. No sign of Gorok though, so I'm just going to set up here with the two armies together. In case he comes back, I'm pretty sure these two armies would be enough to overcome him, so not too afraid of a fight. In the intense sequence, we take a loss far away. You might remember I had a black arc scouting the top of the map, trying to find Dark Elf factions actually, which now don't exist. And he gets taken down by a Lothern army that's hanging around up there, or navy I should say. So that's that. More important is the Itza turn. Gorok comes down from the north and gets ambushed by my little setup here. One of the armies was in ambush stance. Now I was like, well, that balance bar is pretty uncertain. We've got loads of stuff, and our first army is actually good, so I thought surely that balance bar's really in our favour almost to the extreme, but no, it wasn't. The auto-resolve gives me a close victory, and interestingly, a victory where it doesn't distribute the losses very evenly. You can see that some of our units were completely destroyed, others were completely untouched. So a very unsymmetrical auto-resolve, quite unusual and much to our disadvantage. We lost a bunch of units and a couple of heroes as well. Really bad actually, would have been much better to fight that one manually in retrospect. So now we need to consolidate those two armies together to form one effective army because we have a severe lack of distractions / melee infantry. By the way, that Helm of Kraken quest battle is still there in this timeline because I haven't done it yet, since I forgot to do it when I rebuilt the save, and I also can't be bothered to do it again. Now, more important issues are afoot, because a lizardman army is coming into our home territory. They're at Masks of the Old Ones. We've got a full stack garrison, and I've just added in a general to help out as well if they attack. The only force we have that can relieve a potential attack there would be Shadesman here, but instead I'm going to use him to try and go on the offensive. I thought maybe I can swoop down behind and make the enemy turn back. But actually there was another army just to the south, so instead I set up a defensive ambush in case they come towards us. Over here we're going to leave a few troops behind to garrison this terrible settlement, and as I said, I've put an army that looks roughly usable together from the survivors, and they are also going to come over to help with this defensive-offensive plan. So we either try and distract the enemy into going back, or if we do end up losing something, we'll have to reconquer it with those armies. As for Lokir, well, it's time for him to move out and fight the humans. They had built up a sizable force, but not enough for us to not just auto-resolve them to death. So that's that, and we grab some much needed cash off all of that. As for his next move, I want to go back west and resume the war against the lizardmen, even though this place and the place to the east of it are probably still going to rebel because of public order issues. We can't really have our elite, our best army, locked down with public order stuff. So we're going to come back and look for some more raiding opportunities and gradually go southwest towards that Tlaxca place and see if that distracts the enemy some more. This is the next turn when, as you can see, the siege at Masks of the Old Ones has started. The army that was at Axolotl has moved to the east instead of moving north like I thought they might, so they're going to support the attack. That means it's going to be even harder for us to stop them, but it does mean we have more stuff to use for a distractionary counter-offensive, so really that's all we can do. We're going to rush down towards Axolotl, take it with this nice army under Shadesman, and then see if the enemy come back. As for this battle, we saw something like this a couple of parts ago, where while the balance bar is even, on the battlefield we have such a large strategic advantage that we can bring the enemy down for pretty much no casualties whatsoever. Didn't film the replay since it doesn't really matter for this one, but basically here's it happening. I'm just sitting here and the shades and the bolt throwers are doing the work, so I've got plenty of time to casually throw out manticores, read tooltips, give the occasional attack order, and generally just have a luxurious patrician gaming experience where it's not very high APM, even though the pace of the battle is still through the roof. There's enough time to consider doing things like casting a spell and then just not doing it, so effectively doing nothing, reading tips here, seeing how much damage the enemy are taking, and generally enjoying the fact that we're actually doing something. So that's all very nice. Here we are a bit later. Looks like a few enemy troops actually got to our army, which is very disappointing, but in general, our summoned Manticore is enough of a distraction to keep the enemy away, and their ranged units just did nothing. We lost 3 guys. The enemy lost about 1,500, so that's a pretty good ratio for that fight. Went even better than expected, and boom, we move on in. So that really is the play. Now we see what the enemy think about that and whether it causes them to think twice about going and taking our not very heavily defended territories elsewhere. As for Locke, he's continuing his adventure down south. Looks like there's no stack in the town ahead, so we can go for that next turn and grab some raiding this turn. Let's see what's in store. Well, you are probably wondering when this was going to happen. It's about time that Lothern showed up again to continue ruining the campaign. So they are back with 2 stacks coming down from the north. That means some of our recent acquisitions against the lizardmen are probably not going to last very long. In particular, the Temple of Tlenkan location that we've lost before seems to be the target of these 2 stacks. They're both going for it, so that's not going to last very long, I imagine. As for the lizardmen, well, they didn't go back or anything. Their second army is still moving in to support the first. I was more concerned, though, with the Lothern situation, because they can invade here and then just keep going. We don't have a way to stop them until they're quite deep in our territory at the moment. So we need to try and adjust our setup to deal with that. As for this southern front, I wanted at least one of these 2 armies to go over and help with the defense. That's a little bit difficult because of where the roads are. There's some semi-passable terrain between us and the enemy, so we have to take this roundabout route to avoid attrition and get there in good time. So one army starts moving, although it's not in a very good position this turn. The other army is going to continue this offensive, defensive, counter-offensive strategy, where I just go around trying to create distractions. So Shadesman is going to rush south. I spotted there's a nice easy to capture town down there. Does mean if the lizardmen have more stuff to the west, it can come in and recapture the territory we just took, but we're just going to gamble that they don't. As for this small army, it's not of much use, but what I wanted to do with it is go east and then north up that valley towards where the elves are landing. Because if we combine these guys with a garrison or something somewhere, that might be able to do something and potentially stop the enemy. As for Lockyer, it's time to move on and attack this town. This is a case where we can almost certainly bring them down with a manual resolve, and that was the plan at first, but the issue was that I saved and stopped playing, then came back another day, and on this day I was like, you know what, I'm not doing this, and I just auto-resolved it. It was actually fine, we got a Pyrrhic victory, but with no units lost, and with the replenishment we get from both the loot and the end turn sequence after this, we'll actually be fine. By the end of the turn after that, we'll be back to full strength, and we're not going to be fighting anyone until then, so that really was just a free capture, ideal. So we can continue on and go for some more action. Here's Lothern's turn. They are coming in towards Temple of Tlenkan by the looks of it, although they don't attack this turn. Over there it says I blocked an enemy army. This was kind of accidental. I had a sorceress who I had given the order to block an army, one of the two lizardmen armies, a while ago, and forgotten about it, so she actually went and did the order after a while, and that might be significant, because the army blocked is the one in the background here, which didn't make any effort to come over and support this battle. Not sure if the AI was planning to do that, but maybe that army block actually has made this fight easier for us. But yes, more to the point, it's time for us to defend. Marks of the Old Ones, I was calling it Masks of the Old Ones. This place. The same place we've actually defended before against the lizardmen successfully, so that's a good sign. Although last time I'm pretty sure they didn't have all of the Ripidactyls, and they are going to be a real nuisance for a siege defense because of course they can bypass the siege defenses. One of the units goes to attack my distractionary cab outside, so they don't last very long. Another unit goes over the wall and attacks my commander who was just sitting in the street down here, so now he's in trouble. He is going to be weak against the armor-piercing anti-infantry attacks of those Ripidactyls. But I have prepared for this eventuality. You can see I've got many of my archers down here in the streets or on the walls but facing backwards, predicting I would have to not shoot forwards and deal with Ripidactyls being behind us, although there, the third unit is actually attacking my distractionary units going out of the gate. And there's another distraction, some cav in the back corner. I've managed to kite away 2 infantry units from the fight, so that's great. They can just walk around and keep them distracted for a while. Our initial unit of distractionary cav is just about done dying to these Ripidactyls, but our towers and crossbows have taken some health off the flyers in the meantime. Then though they start coming over the walls to harass the archers down in the street. These guys were on skirmish mode, which is not the right thing to do. They need to stand their ground and die more effectively so that they can do some damage back. Our commander is gradually dying, but so are the Ripidactyls attacking him, with more bolts being shot backwards at him. At this stage though, the real fight begins. The siege towers are at the walls. They've got a few units in siege towers, and here these temple guards will most likely take out our crossbows easily enough. They've got more guards over here. This time though I had Black Ark Corsairs up on the wall to defend, and in other places I've got some Witch Elves ready to defend as well, a nice powerful unit. Our commander routs under the attacks from the Ripidactyl, so that sucks. You can see though we've done loads of damage to this unit, the number of models killed is very low, so the offensive power of the enemy is not declining. Basically they'll be absolutely annihilating us until the last second when we suddenly annihilate them. All of the Black Ark abilities are now popping off, and that's going to level some enemy units quite nicely. Our distractions outside the wall are working. We've got some towers gunning the enemy down, and some of our crossbows will be helping as well. And yes, these Black Ark abilities do a lot of damage, because I think I'm using the max level ones in each case. And here, the crossbows are doing the work, shooting into the Ripidactyls and theoretically gradually killing them. I've got a Death Hag in there doing the kiting right now. And while I've mentioned before that Death Hags aren't very good for tanking duties because they have low defense and low armor, I think they might secretly be good against Ripidactyls in particular, because the Ripidactyl attacks cause the Hag to get knocked to the ground, and then they can't attack you while you're lying on the ground. So it takes them a long time in between each attack they can make because they just wait for you to get back up. Therefore, they are being distracted quite heavily there fighting the Death Hag, and of course the Death Hag can probably do some damage back. So every time they go in to attack her, they don't achieve much, and she actually tanks very successfully against those specific units as a result. Now, elsewhere in the battle, some cav outside the walls are taking down the enemy's ranged units quite nicely. And yes, our general distraction outside the wall was pretty successful. All the units that didn't come in via siege towers did take quite a pounding from towers and ranged attacks, so we have really depleted their army. but they are doing the same thing to us up on the walls, so that balance bar isn't really getting any better at this stage. And then somewhere at the back, our commander gets killed by some more Ripperdactyls. So that's that, and we still have to deal with them really. Here they are coming in again to attack the Death Hag, who gets sent absolutely flying. This gives her invincibility frames effectively for a couple of seconds. The enemy will stop doing damage, while the bolts come down and do damage to them. We do have some okay fights going on up on the walls after the crossbowmen doing the initial fighting are dead. The Black Ark Corsairs can do okay, especially as we reach the whatever it's called, the cane thing, where we get the amount of kills we need and they suddenly get very buffed. And outside, all's looking good. We're just mopping up over here. Our fights on the walls last just long enough for me to pop off some more Black Ark stuff, and this is where the real damage is coming in, because while the enemy are trying to kill these little scraps of units I have up here, I think these things streaking down are doing quite a bit of damage. It's kind of hard to tell how much damage they're doing really, but the enemy do seem to lose a lot of stuff comparing before and after. As for the Rippers, well, they're still coming at us, but they're nearly dead. They're down to their last couple of pixels of health, and you can see there another advantage of having the Death Hag tanking is that when they charge in, only one of the Rippers can actually hit her, so the rest just don't do anything with their charge, and now they're kind of stuck trying to attack her in this doorway and probably are mostly doing nothing. So, good stuff, our crossbows are still hitting them, and after like 10 minutes of continuous fire, we can eventually kill them, and at this stage they're routing with pretty much no health. That last pixel is all that stands between all the models being alive and being dead, so at last we can start to get rid of them. Looks like their commanders come down to fight the Hag instead now. Not really sure whether we have an advantage in this, but I was happy to let it go. But I did also throw in our little special ability, which admittedly I don't actually know where it comes from. Sometimes we're allowed to do this thing where we can fire a homing missile from space. Might be only in our own territory or something, or near a certain building. But basically, we take some health off of that guy, and now the Death Hag will have an easier time. We've nearly won this battle, you could say. Look at that balance bar. It's starting to come back into our favour because the enemy don't have that much stuff left on the field. Neither do we. Here I thought was a chance to level things out by using a cauldron. I thought my archers would stop the enemy for a bit, then the cauldron there would take them out. Unfortunately, we routed too fast, so the enemy advanced past the cauldron drop zone. Still though, all these troops that are down on the ground, apparently just doing nothing by the looks of things, are great targets for my few surviving troops who are pretty much all crossbowmen. So we're inflicting damage, our Death Hag does defeat the enemy commander, and all of a sudden, this looks like it's going to be okay. The enemy aren't really trying to get back up on the wall and finish off those last few units that they just walked past earlier. And with that, we just sit there launching bolts and the enemy eventually rout and are forced to leave. So that kind of just came back at the end and we got away with all that. Having the backwards facing archers seems to have not only been good against the Ripperdactyls, but to have confounded the AI into just standing in front of them and getting shot. So here's the eventual result. We didn't even lose our commander, he came back from the dead at the end, so that was all good. We technically did not lose anything, but the enemy lost plenty. So a very successful defense, and that's going to mean this war is no longer quite so hairy. We'll see how things continue though, as the two Elven armies come into play in the next part.